quite a while, so probably not.
Okay.
Call the meeting to order. First order of business is to review the minutes from last time. It was October 2nd, 2023. Everybody get a chance to look at that? All questions and concerns?
Long time ago, I thought.
Yeah. So you're talking about top 5 lines. If there's no concerns, can I ask for a motion to approve? 1 second. All in favor? Opposed? Looks like we have a couple items of new business, a couple zoning map amendment requests. One for Sunrise Park and one for Pathfinder.
You can turn that one on if you need to.
That's what I was gonna, yeah, that's a turn on.
Turn it on. So this is a zoning map amendment request by the Sylva Church of God. There's the property owners and Heights Incorporated is the potential purchaser. Property is, there's two PIN numbers. So it's 130 Sunrise Park and 131 Sunrise Park. These two parcels. PIN number 7641379289 and 7641471241. This is the existing former Church of God church building here. There's an existing residential unit behind that, and across the street, there's an existing dwelling. The current zoning of the property is high density residential. This is Sunrise Park. This area, you can see the orange shaded area. That's the high density residential designation. And then, of course, the ordinance section for the text amendment request is Article 3 in procedures, Section 3.9 zoning about amendments. The description of the request is that the applicant is requesting a map amendment that would designate the subject properties as general business district. The general business district, you may know, is the red shaded corridor area. And then right here around the intersection of 107 and 23, you can see that that whole corner is also business. Background is the general business district is the largest district within Sylva's commercially zoned jurisdiction. The general business district offers a broad range of permitted uses by right and special uses, such as lodging, retail, commercial, restaurants, public, civic, accessory dwellings, recreational uses. Property improvements in this district are subject to development standards as set forth in the zoning ordinance, including building setbacks, landscaping, architectural standards, sidewalk construction, parking, treatment, etc. The subject properties are located on both sides of Sunrise Park Road. You can see Sunrise Park. This is going up to the 723 intersection. These are the two properties that are highlighted in yellow. we'll talk about this in a second, but the dashed line is a proposed subdivision where the Church of God would still keep this residential property and still remain in HDR district. The subject properties are approximately 720 linear feet from the intersection of 107 and 23, or Sunrise Park intersection. The total land area for both properties is 0.72, so 7,200ths of an acre for both of these properties together. The main church structure, following the Church of God, is on the west side, and then the two accessory buildings on one back. Access to the property is from the public rights of way on Sunrise Park, Ensley Street here, and Conley Street here. So there's parking all the way around the church building. So there is access on all sides. This property is adjacent to properties to the northeast that are general business. So this is general business here. And obviously that's the Walmart, or sorry, Walgreens, and that plaza area up there on that side of the road. These properties are not located within the 100-year floodplain, and this property is served by Tuckasegee Water and Sewer Authority for Public Utilities. The application response is that the applicant is requesting that the existing town of Sylva zoning map be amended to designate the subject property, a portion of the 7,200ths of an acre after the subdivision, to the general business district. This is, they already had a survey done. This would be the plat for that. So this property, you can see the proposed line right here behind the church building. So this, and this is what we would be talking about of the rezoning. This would stay in high density residential. Site findings are the requested map amendment would not constitute spot zoning, as the properties to the northeast are zoned general business. So again, this is connected to this property. So it's not a donut hole out in the middle of the district where it would not allow for zoning. The town's adopted land use plan for 2040 establishes that this property will be in the future civic and cultural district, and encourage land uses for this future district include public and private green space, recreation, which is passive and active, forested land, buildings, structures, and or commercial uses that support active parks and recreational facilities, government and social service facilities, places of worship, and educational facilities. However, if the map amendment request is approved, these properties will be in the future community corridor district. These two districts, this is the future land use map here. You can see the highlighted properties right here. This would be the, you can't see it, but these two properties are shaded green, which is the civic and cultural uses. So this map, future land use map, is showing those properties here, but you can see that they're peppering around the town of what that future district will be. It's mostly governmental uses and parks, is what the future land use map is showing. If the request is granted, these properties will be in the future community corridor district, with encouraged land uses for this district being mixed use buildings, institutional uses, walkable neighborhood, commercial, retail, office, and personal services, large scale commercial, business centers, community services, civic and educational services. In addition, this map, requested map amendment will create available property and opportunity for in the current general business district that may be needed to serve the community during or after the proposed Highway 107 project. So this would be the future community corridor. All the light shaded purple here, and it would capture that area right there is where it would go. So I'm happy to answer any questions on that.
Is there any downside anybody can speak to?
Well, the proposed uses, or the proposed unit, Paul's here, he's a representative of Heights, and he can speak to any of their services, but future land use for the two districts basically would offer what their service is. However, the map amendment, it doesn't, you're amending it because of what they're, right now, it doesn't allow for it. That's why they're asking for it. It's currently zoned at high, that's it. So they need a map amendment to do their particular organizational services. So going forward, two districts will allow it in a little bit different capacity. He can speak a little bit more to that and what that mission is. But then it's going forward, you have to look at it if they will always be whatever it's rezoned until it gets rezoned again. So the thought is, what could that be in the future if it's not as a civil service?
How long has it been since the church has been active?
Well, they've moved. They've gone from this location. They haven't been there in a couple of years. I think they've moved over to Church Street.
It is currently rented to a Hispanic church though, so it's currently used as a church right
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I saw the sale sign and it looked like there was much of a problem.
now. No, they're there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday
Oh.
evenings. It's about all.
And are the two residential houses, are they being rented right now or?
One is the one that is not included in the rezone. The church wants to keep it to have a potential parsonage if the current pastor leaves eventually. But yes, the one that is on the side of the street closest to the general business is currently rented.
What's the thinking behind needing both of those parcels changed? Like both the business span on either side.
Not right away. The other side, we may end up keeping that building. Really, we're gonna use it for parking and having a dumpster on that side of the road there. I don't think we have any plans to build anything on that side.
Does it become spot zoning if you don't do?
Yes.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
You would have an island there, it's one of the houses connects it to the general business district, so. That's kind of how it's not spot zoning, right? John?
Yeah,
Speak up
see-
when I start making things up.
Yeah, so this is general commercial here in the red. If this changes to general commercial, this can change to general commercial. If this doesn't, this really is not attached to, there's no buffer between the two. You're jumping from that over to there. So that's what I'm saying. Spot zoning, you don't want to form those donut holes to where they're just out there kind of floating. That is,
By
this is
themselves,
not
like
a
little
really,
islands.
yeah, it's not really an extreme case of that, but they're, what you would really consider a spot zone is if this guy over here wanted to be general commercial. And, there's nobody,
There's nobody
a
attached to
restaurant in
it.
the middle of a neighborhood.
Right.
It's not a far reach really in this case. But, we
So
try.
that piece that's in the V, put your pointer back, no, right there. What is that?
That's a home.
That's a house.
I will say the pastor of the church that we're buying it from, he owns that house, so he hasn't presented any issue with it. So I think his daughter lives there currently.
So the church is staying, the building's staying, or,
Yes,
okay,
yeah, we'll do a renovation on it to use it for our use.
and then the house cross that
The house is gonna stay for now. We're not 100% sure what's gonna go on with it in the future. It's in pretty poor condition. We haven't gotten into it too much to see what we want to do. There's a chance it may be additional therapeutic office space for us. There's a chance we might just keep running it and trying to put a really low rate to the people that now they seem to be good tenants for another person there. And there's a chance, there's a chance we may just keep it for a couple of years and decide it's too far gone.
So for the benefit of this board, can you explain what Heights does?
Yeah, so Heights, we have been in Jackson County since 2007. We do grown a lot in the last couple of years, but the basics of it is therapeutic services in the schools. We're in Haywood, Jackson, Macon County Schools pretty heavily, and our programs also expand further out west. The specific use for this building is intended for an all-staff gathering space for when we are doing trainings. We will have some therapy offices in here as well for some of our therapeutic staff. And the basement of the building is going to become a hub for food delivery service that we are doing right now.
Basement of the church or of the house across the street?
Basement of the church.
Sure.
Yep. It's got the full through. Pull through parking lot. It's absolutely perfect for what we.
You define what you mean by therapeutic services.
Yeah, so we have therapists that work, and we're focused on young adults, so kids generally ages 12 to 24. So we have therapists embedded in the school systems. We get a lot of referrals from juvenile justice and Department of Social Services. So
These are mental health therapists.
correct, yes.
You're embedded in schools contract with you.
Yes, and we have office spaces at the Jackson County School of Alternatives, Waynesville Middle School, Macon Middle, which comes with all of its own challenges, not having our own space for a lot of these things. And so that is part of our intention here is a hub for us.
What is your food delivery operation like?
Yeah, so we've got 150 families now. We deliver food boxes. It's a Medicaid reimbursed service right now. There's a pilot going on in the state. And it just got renewed for another 5 years, which is kind of our decision. And all right, we need something to grow this. And so that is that's kind of what we do. We get like deliveries, produce deliveries, milk deliveries. We do a lot of pickup, like Aldi just packs pallets for us and we bring them back and unpack them kind of thing. So bring the food in, pack it up, and send it out with our delivery drivers.
So will there be a full kitchen or is it just it's a delivery?
No, it's all prepackaged food. We don't do any opening of any meat packs to separate it out. It's all packaged. The only thing that we may do is some like vegetable processing if we get into some community carded produce donations.
Will 18-wheelers have to go down that road?
No.
So just.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, produce delivery comes in
Box
a box truck. And yeah, there's a real easy way that the lower parking lot on the upper part there, a very easy spot for a truck to quickly back in and pull right out.
About the neighbor on the west side or south. Yeah. Are they aware?
So the signs are posted out front, yeah, we'll see.
They
They come.
always see, sir.
Yeah. See if they come to the commissioners meeting now.
It seems to me like the current use of the church and this proposed use as well fits better in the general business. But there is the housing to be considered as well. I mean, the application talks about creating space or opportunity in reaction to the 107 development, possible needs from the 107 development, but we do have a current need for housing right now. So I think, I mean, just one of the housing units, it sounds like would potentially be taken out of the housing pool, and it is an inexpensive house as well. So I was thinking about the people who would need to live there, they're unlikely to find a similar house for, I mean, the average rent in Jackson County is like $2,000. So.
Yeah, and
So that would be, you know,
Yeah.
unfortunate.
no, we definitely intend to keep those folks in it for as long as feasible.
Yeah.
So,
But changing it into general business, like you guys won't be there forever.
I
They take it out of the housing.
you know, we've been here for 20 years. I intend that we're gonna have this building for another 40 years. Yeah.
So I would think like that would be the drawback. I think some small amount of housing, affordable housing, potentially out of the market in the future. And that space would no longer be available for housing after that house is gone.
Well, it would. Right, I mean, it could still be housed.
For in general business. Yeah,
And I mean, I think we run the same risk in a residential neighborhood, if somebody buying it, but then 400,000. I think it's hard to shut things down just based on.
in general business, are residential uses allowed? What are the residential uses allowed in general?
accessory. So it would have to be an accessory to the primary, in this case, the primary. The organization.
Okay, so it wouldn't be a single family home like it is, like that one is currently, it would have to be.
But the one behind it staying height is residential.
It's being talked about.
I feel like what they're proposing to put there is probably in more of need than
Beneficial to the community, right?
one home. I mean, I hate to say that, but
Especially if that home won't be. Kicked out of there.
We're intending by the end of the year that we will have 800 families. With this new space.
That's needed.
Will the section on Sunrise Park have sidewalk?
Well, it would be, you mean for this right here?
Yes.
It's already paved, I think, is it?
The whole parking lot around the building is paved and there is sidewalk and a crosswalk that connect the house across the street. Currently, you can see the crosswalk there. But as far as there is no sidewalk that comes up to the property at all that we could really connect in. But yeah, I had a thought, just reading the specifics. Like
will there eventually be one that comes down from Walgreens to town?
There's no, I mean, the town's not proposing that, but if there were development, now this is residential here, so it wouldn't be required.
On the other side?
If this were to redevelop or change use.
That's the tire shop.
Mechanic shop here, and then the tire shop's over here, the mechanic shop, and then this is like their upper. If this were to sell and redevelop, then it could do that, it could wrap this. And I don't think DOT's project's not including sidewalk on Caldwell.
Yeah.
So,
That's kennel save.
yeah, up here, yeah. So it's the value, there's triggers on the ordinance, if it's the value of the property is increased 50% more, the tax value is increased 50% more. Any improvements, which this would be, or if there's a change of use, there's a couple of other. The change of use is kind of, in this case, a little bit gray because of what the use is in terms of civic.
It's not going from
Nonprofit.
residential.
Right, it's not going from residential to a restaurant. Residential type of use, so it's kind of a little bit. We're doing a little dance there to say that's a true change.
The odd triangle that anybody, it doesn't tell the
Right here.
number, yeah.
Well, it's probably a lot of properties that you'll find, especially in a small rural town, they were formed from a larger parent tract at one time. So this all may have been like one big tract, and then as it got broken out because of the way that they subdivided it, for whatever reason, there was a tree on that back corner. It looks like.
The triangle is a groundhog hill. So it kind of like the straight up from where that triangle starts is kind of where the parking lot and flat space is.
I assume that, just quickly, that when you make this heights, any lighting, additional lighting put in would be take into account the fact that there's so many residential people around you.
Yeah, absolutely. Currently, it's got emergency lights on the outside and I think lights on all four corners of the soffit. Not sure if they currently work. But yeah, we would, I assume there's some code on lighting ordinance or anything. I know we have
Oh,
for ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a building code
Okay.
for lighting for. See,
Yeah.
coming in and out of the building, and then, the town's ordinance does have a lighting section. I'll speak to that goes with the. When they develop.
You know, we don't want to make any neighbors mad at us either, so we would take everything into consideration, anything that we're doing.
Motion to approve.
All in favor? Any opposed?
Thank y'all. I'll
Thank you.
step out.
Uh-huh.
See y'all soon. Thank you.
You almost sit through more, Paul?
I did 4 years. That's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I put it on your desktop.
I got
Zoning map amendment, request number 2, Misty and Palolo. Property owners, 28 and 42, Pathfinder Lane. Number 76416666143, 76416670045. Highway 107, Walter Ash Road, Cove Creek. Off of Pathfinder, this is the old Possible Gas building. This is the old car wash, tire shop, etc. These two properties, right here, you can see the magenta line between the two. It's these two properties. The current zoning of this is the high density district. This is Walter X Road right here. It's going to be these properties right off the path here. And same articles, Article 3 of the procedures in section 3.9B. Zoning and map amendments. The description of the request is that the applicant is requesting a map amendment that would designate the subject properties as general business. Again, the general business district is the largest in the commercially zoned jurisdiction. And then the broad range of uses of non-residential lodging, retail, commercial, restaurant, public, civic, recreational uses, et cetera. Property improvements would have to comply with the development standards within the ordinance. So that being said, if the property, now that it's zoned high density residential, anything that happens on that would have to comply with the development standards, which would be landscaping, setbacks, architectural standards, stormwater, etc. The subject properties are located on the south side of Pathfinder Road. Next slide. So this highlighted yellow is where the properties are, Walter Ash. This is off the zoning map, kind of an inset, zoomed in tight. And again, this property is being taken by DOT for the realignment of Walter Ash and Cove Creek. The new hotspot is going to be going there. And then these are the properties that were looked at a year and a half ago or so, that's all changed to commercial. The general business.
I have a question on that. The previous map showed a little slice of a pie that separates those properties from Walter Ash. Yeah. And calling that,
Here,
yeah, that area.
that's DOT right away.
It's street.
Yeah, so.
Oh, I see.
So
So
it's
they're
gonna come-
actually,
Yeah, it's gonna come this
Okay.
way.
because calling that thing a road is kind of generous. Look more like a dirt path.
Pathfinder Lane,
Yeah.
yeah, nobody's claiming it, right? And we run into that where it's not a town road and the DOT doesn't claim it. So
So,
kind of like a private,
okay, so any access to what goes on there off Walter Ash.
yes,
Okay.
And Walter Ash is right to the left,
yeah,
right there.
which will be realigned. It's gonna curve in right here and have a crossing and have a true intersection with Oak Creek when the road project is. So on Pathfinder Lane, approximately 100 feet to the east off of Walter Ash is the properties. It's the properties in total are 7/10 of an acre. Access to the properties are from the public right of way of Walter Ash Road, which this will obviously have frontage on that property of Walter Ash, and then of course on Pathfinder as well. These properties are adjacent to properties to the east and north that are in the general business district and are not located within the 100-year floodplain. Additional response, the applicant is requesting that the existing town of Sylva zoning map be amended to designate these two properties 7/10 of an acre to the general business district. The staff findings are that the requested map amendment would not constitute spot zoning as the properties to the east and north are zoned general business district. The town's adopted land use plan of 2040 establishes that these properties will be in the urban neighborhood district, which is so urban neighborhood is the light blue. Yeah, light blue. But if the map amendment request is granted, it would go into the community corridor district, which is the purple. So much like happened next to this and the properties that would be in front of it, that shade would just turn to the purple, basically transferring this property is basically out of, that's all DOT taking there, and a portion of this is, so this would all be that corridor district, and of course, these changed a year and a half ago. So urban neighborhood district, these are the uses. See, it's more limited on what those would be. Live work units, civic, educational uses, small scale in-home businesses, small scale open space, et cetera. Then the community corridor basically would be what we know now as the general business district, which would allow for retail, office, institutional, mixed-use buildings, et cetera. In addition, this requested map amendment will create available property and opportunity in the general business district that may be needed to serve the community during and after the proposed highway 107 improvement. So again, keeping it kind of that same line of, we've had a lot of properties affected and taken by the roadway project, this being one of them that's immediately to the north of this property that will be in the that has already been taken and is in part of that project. So this basically is a step back from the 107 road, that property that's just behind it, of some property that was taken. It's happening in this case. So the request is to rezone that to what general business is today.
But there's nothing planned for it currently.
Not having plans. They have not shared anything.
And what's this down here where it says the town's adopted plan? I mean, this last paragraph,
2040 land use plan.
yes.
Yeah, so that's what we just talked about. So in the 2040 land use plan, these properties are in the neighborhood, or urban neighborhood district.
Right.
That's in a perfect world if that thing were to change. And the request would be for the future to not keep it in that urban neighborhood district. It's to put it in the community corridor district if this amendment, this map amendment were allowed. Right.
Okay, so yes, so if accepted or if amended, it says the encouraged land uses for this future district include, these are, they're saying primarily housing of some kind?
No,
No,
you mean for the,
for that land. Mine is not,
That's the current.
I think the urban neighborhood, yeah.
that's the current.
The current encouraged.
Below is what it would shift to, which mixed use.
I see, thank you.
and it's probably more, it's kind of that buffer, that urban neighborhood is kind of more of a buffer. It's not like a true residential district or residential allowed, but also some low scale, non-residential or a mix, like live work studios or in-house businesses and those types.
The applicant had the, this is the, right? You don't have to.
I don't have it on.
Yeah. Do you know offhand how much that is cutting into the existing row of business properties?
Well, the realignment? Well, look. So the existing road, Walter Ash Road, is it comes in kind of in this area. They're realigning Walter Ash to come in. So these are the properties that, right? So this property in particular, the one that is furthest to the west did have a taking. So that formed that triangle, right? And then it went across and it was taking in the Boston Gas. And it's coming in between where the new hotspot is going to go and that Boston Gas property, which is already taken. So DOT owns that.
Right.
So basically the frontage for these properties is going to be, for the lack of a better description, 107. It'll be stepped back in property because of the taking, because it's going to be a major stormwater crossing right there. But basically it'll be fronted on 107, 100 feet plus back from there, because there's not going to be any commercial property in front of it. So, I mean, I couldn't tell you a dimension on what exactly it is, but they're realigning it to where it's coming right across the front door there.
Yeah, so can you go to the regular map again?
The big one?
That one, yeah.
So this was the
So
old
that
one.
first row of red, right
Yes,
there, close to 107, how much of that is gonna be cut into by the road?
this is gone. This is a deal.
I know that corner one, yeah,
Right.
but the rest of the line.
You mean over
I
here?
mean, I guess that whole corridor is pretty much red, except for this little island of the high density residential, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's not on the corridor itself.
Uh-huh,
So yes, so it's all along 107, all the properties that border 107 may have existing residential on them
yeah,
that are probably gone now because of takings and whatnot. But you could see, just because of the uses and what they've been zoned historically, they are all non-residential.
mhm,
This and Hall Heights are probably the closest to 107 and maybe some of Sunrise Park here.
mhm,
That's high density residential,
right,
these three. But nothing in high density residential or residential is directly bordering on 107 currently.
just add to the
How big will the
red
lot,
of the corridor.
how big will the lot be when it's the two?
Well, it's 7/10 of an acre is what the current tax map.
A decent size, it'd be a decent size to
Yeah.
put.
And
Kind
if
of
you,
prime for business.
it would, and have you driven by? They're dilapidated. a little bit.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, for residences, it wouldn't be ideal anyway, if that's
Right.
gonna be a pretty big intersection.
big intersection here, and this is gonna be a gas station.
Right. Yeah, there are the two houses that are occupied on there now, right, that are pretty run down.
Yeah, the
Again.
one, I don't even know if it's being
Expensive.
used, can't, know, you guys might know the tax side of things, but. I don't, there's been a little agricultural sales going on that kind of had to stay after, it's kind of hit and miss, but I'm not so sure that it's permanently used as a residence. I've had calls on this one for it to be remodeled and so forth back when all the taking was going on. I guess the owners just decided to go. So.
And the two properties that they're saying one is not occupied, that's not on the property or that's adjacent to?
In their
Sorry.
application. There's two properties.
Property to the south and behind is zone HDR and it's vacant. So they're both on the south and behind. There's two, they're vacant.
These two,
Okay.
I think this is
Are they
twice.
talking about the next door properties? What's that?
The property to the south and behind 28 and 42 Pathfinder is zone HDR and it's vacant. Property to the east is zone HDR and is being used for apartments.
Okay, so they're-
And behind it, there's somebody owns their house, that's a half residential, to the left. Yeah, right there.
Well, it's vacant.
That there's no empty structure on that.
Right.
Yeah, so again, we'd be looking at eventually eliminating those two residential. They both have.
We don't even know if anyone's living on.
Areas,
Yeah.
When I did the tax card research, I don't, it's showing on GIS, I'm not so sure that that house exists anymore. I think that's gone.
Yeah.
I think so. I think that's been done. If I'm not mistaken. Because I think on the tax card, it's just, well, for building value.
The dwellings on this property are minimalist at best and have no value.
that's possible two people living there.
Right. Those are not my words.
Affordable place to live, otherwise. I'll swear.
Very. So don't believe anyone would purchase these parcels to build. But I do think it's good personally. If we. Business. Big spots, yes.
Does the town have like a desired percentage of the town property wanting to be high density residential? Seems like we keep chipping away at it. That makes sense, like,
Yeah,
we want it to be like 15% or something of the town.
remember is a percentage that we talked about when we were going through this process, so much as I remember buffers between the districts. To like having high density residential buffer between general business and lower density or medium density residential. And there's certainly a desire to keep housing, but they're also looking at where it is and where the proximity of the parcel is along the corridor anyways. It was right off of commercial property, so. answers your question.
So if you look at it, planning fundamentals or I mean, that's the reason you have the different districts, right? Everything has its place and it makes sense where those pieces of those puzzles go. Like, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to have a single family residential fronting with each other. Doesn't, it may obviously mean something to the property owner, maybe historically or whatnot, but in terms of the community, right, it would be hypothetically speaking, be taking up valuable real estate that could be serving the town. But also that use would not be allowed in the residential district, you know, so you're trying to keep a separation of that to where everything makes sense, I guess. Just fundamentally speaking, so I guess this is what we struggle with all the time, every time we sit and talk about these things is where do these pieces of the puzzle fit, right? And so, you know, and then of course we're thrown, you know, struggling for the last 10 years of the road improvement and how that happens and how that factors in. And so we have all these moving parts and it's not easy. And then of course, in that time frame, I mean, I sat on the committee back in 2010 and 11, when we talked about it every day with the DOT and so forth. And then it wasn't, you really weren't hearing anything about housing, right? It was like, I mean, especially since COVID, it's really one different thing. It's very much, I mean, it was before that, we were hearing, but it's just at the forefront in every across the state and across the country, and you just can't keep up with it. But it's difficult to just have a knee-jerk reaction, I think, too, and forget all of future planning, you know, the 2040 plan, where those pieces should go. Of course, that plan can be modified too, as you go, to adjust and to figure out the trends and where we're going. Anyway, that's just kind of it in a nutshell. I don't know that there's any wrong answer. I don't think there's, you know, if whatever decision is made on, you know, on any of these issues, I don't know that it's, unless it's like pretty evident of what something should be, but you know, something like this is, it could go either way just because of proximity to 107, what it currently is being used as or not, and what it will be in the future when, let's say, the road is complete.
Well, I'm certainly not trying to say like we should never change any residential, you know, zones, properties to any up to general business or whatnot, just because we need. But it's something to consider when there is.
It's an interesting idea to me for a town to go out on a limb and say a certain percentage is, we're always going to keep that. I mean, that's foresight and hard lighting. And I'm not talking negative about it. I think it's a good idea, but it's I have a word, but it's not appropriate for you. It takes guts to say that we're not ever going to.
Will be gone.
That we're going to use that as our marker.
Yeah.
We're going to use that as our guide. We're committed to that idea or philosophy or whatever it is. I think that's an interesting idea. I don't know how practical it is, but certainly there are towns that do that though, right?
I don't know.
I
I
think
was
you
just
do
curious if we had a goal or a general guideline for housing, but I think what you're trying to talk about is like, there's a lot of factors.
It's a lot of variables that you have to, and it's constantly changing.
And so
right?
you can't say.
Yeah, right, and that's why you have the zone districts. If you have the zone districts, that kind of by default is defining what percentages you want in residential and what you don't. Right, so by forming those districts, 3 residential districts that you have, you're kind of already saying that. So if you took if you canvassed that, did a survey of just those properties, you would have your answer.
Mhm.
And then there's a couple of buffer or crossover districts like the professional district and so forth that do allow residential, but they also allow for professional offices and other uses. So don't know that that's really a good gauge to count those.
Mhm.
But the hardcore residential would be the low density, medium density, high density would be pretty much identified and set aside for residential purposes.
Not going to fix the housing crisis. To keep
And the
those
tax,
individual properties from changing from APR to
so this,
GB is a
property-
bigger problem.
the tax card is showing the building value at 0 of that property there.
Okay.
This one's like at 30,000. The building value. And that's with.
There's plenty of land around it. If people wanted to build, they could. They
Yeah.
can sell it to somebody who wants to build.
Mhm. It's not like
Yeah.
there's people like
Right.
storming the doors.
Let's do it in one. But has anyone ever said, no, you can't be general business, but you could be, change it to one that could, you could have residential and.
It would have
Like
to
a
touch
professional business.
one.
Oh, okay, so
that's-
that would be
That
fine.
would be a spot.
Gotcha. Mm.
But do we have any of, what is it called, the, where you can have both professional?
Professional business.
Yeah, we have. She's Skyland. Kind of, behind the hospital, Skyland, kind of.
Doable.
Yeah, you would do, the 2040 land use plan would be amended, like, hey, let's look at this and maybe adjust what that future corridor looks like, or what other areas could become that. Or for the crossing. But then the snowball's rolling, right? Because what are you up against? What is that? Are you between residential? Does it make sense to do that or?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot to it.
Else, do you have any thoughts?
No, but I'm waiting. I don't know. Since it's gonna be.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense, especially since Alter Ash is gonna be right up against it, that's. And it's like, if it's adjacent to those other general business properties, it's gonna be more.
Is Pathfinder gonna stay in use? I mean, does
Yeah,
does it have to stay?
well, yeah, it does serve. Again, we don't know if it's,
But no one's claiming it.
nobody, well, we think it's private, we don't really, I guess it's private, because DOT's not claiming it, the town's not claiming it. So one would assume it's private, all these deeds probably speak to some access in their deeds, along Pathfinder. What's gonna happen is the latest plan I have for hotspot, when this road comes through, that there will be a back entrance driveway to that gas station. So there may be that delivery truck, whatever can make it, and makes sense, because you're gonna have a right in, right out only for the gas station. So you're not gonna be able to go left once you pull in there unless, now, that may change because they are coordinating that with DOT currently. So I don't know if that changes. The plan I had a year ago showed a back entrance, just a modest entrance and then a right in, right out pork chop island in front. But if safely speaking, if you wanted to go left, obviously you'd go down Pathfinder and hit the light,
Right.
make the left hand.
Is that gonna stay a light, not a roundabout?
No roundabouts on 107, so there'll be a traffic signal here. There'll be a traditional traffic.
Hopefully you're unlocking the county use of a piece of property.
Yeah.
Putting it on the tax roll and up and down.
Other comments? Alright, so. We have a motion to approve this change in zoning for this property.
I'll motion to approve.
I'll do a second. Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, we need to go back to the first one. Oh, we have to read the statement.
Let's get that. Thank you, John.
Or will be the statement with one of these that's not, that's possibly not consistent. The first. How should we word that change?
That is consistent with the intended use of future light.
So just a different corridor. Okay, that's, thank you. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. See you on Wednesday, is it 2 weeks?
Yes, yes, 13. Wonders. You know, it matters. Okay. All right, so we're gonna look at the first one on Sunrise. So this is a statement of consistency pursuant to statutes 160B regarding the proposed zoning map amendment from high density residential to general business for parcels identified by PIN number 7641-66-613 and 7641-66-705. That's half under.
Is it?
Yes,
Oh, I'm-
you're fine.
Just keep going. I'll just do this one first.
Okay,
Okay, yeah, just keep the pathfinder. The town of Sylva Planning Board has found the zoning map amendment to parcels identified. Okay, as I said, to be supported by the town of Sylva 2040 land use plan. We do find the proposed amendment to be consistent with the plan for Sylva corridor specifications found on page 32 of the town of Sylva 2040 land use plan. More specifically, the land use plan speaking to the community corridor. The requested map amendment would not constitute spot zoning as the subject properties will be in accordance with the town's adopted land use plan for 2040. This plan establishes that these properties will be in the future community corridor district. The encouraged land uses for this future district include mixed use buildings, institutional uses, walkable neighborhood commercials, retail, office, personal services, and large-scale commercial business centers, community services, and civic education services. We therefore consider the proposed zoning map amendment to be reasonable and in the public interest.
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? All right. Moving on to the other one. In pursuant to general statutes 160D regarding the proposed zoning map amendment from high density residential to general business for parcels identified by PIN 7641-37-9289 and 7641-47-1241. The town of Sylva Planning Board has found the zoning map amendment to parcels identified by those PIN numbers to be supported by the town of Sylva 2040 land use plan. We find the proposed amendment to be consistent with the plan for Sylva corridor specifications found on page 32 of the town of Sylva 2040 land use plan. More specifically, for the community corridor, the requested map amendment would not constitute spot zoning as the subject properties will be in accordance with the town's adopted land use plan for 2040. This plan establishes that these properties will be in the future community corridor district. Encouraged land uses for this future district include mixed-use buildings, institutional uses, walkable neighborhood commercial, retail, office, and personal services, large-scale commercial business centers, community services, and civic educational services. We therefore consider the proposed zoning map amendment to be reasonable and in the public interest. All in favor? None opposed. Any other business we need to discuss?
I just want to ask about the housing. What happened to that multifamily development across from the Harold's? Savannah Drive, where's that
Yeah, I
at?
was asking.
So that is proposed for federal tax credits. It wasn't selected the last time, so when the next cycle comes up, they
That's
will
right.
likely apply again.
When does that happen?
It's usually in February or March, but I think this is an off year for it.
So it's gonna be,
And,
Wow.
I was talking to one of the property owners last week. He said it scored well, but it fell short because it wasn't close enough to a school. So, but I think that is a very viable property for that use when somebody that works for you
No,
can
you-
answer this a whole lot better,
Yeah. But I couldn't, so you're doing great.
so I think in the future, one of the developers will apply again for it.
does that have to come through us again, or is there a statute of limitations?
It comes through us again every time.
Every time. Is it tweaked to make the state happy?
It more depends on where other places are applying and what their projects are and which ones are funded and spreading the funding out and how much funding they're allocated for it.
Sometimes they change the weighting to, they could theoretically change like the school. Like something that knocks us out could go out one year and all of a sudden we'd be in better shape.
Would the new school that's going in be closer?
Depends on where they're.
Have they found a place for it?
Didn't we approve a change in zoning for that, if the-
Oh, Journeys, that's Skyland.
That's off Skyline.
Too far.
Probably not.
And I don't know that it might be
It's a
public,
private.
Yeah, I'm curious about
Must be public.
I don't know that.
Is that a charter?
It's a private.
It's gonna be.
That new Blossom construction across from Harold's almost, that's within Sylva city limits, right?
Yes.
Didn't come through.
No, they can get it
Because-
right.
It's the state.
Administrative. So John has signed off. The planning department.
Meaning like for the zone that it's in, it's already approved.
Right.
Right, it's by writing, okay.
I'm glad they fixed up that gas station across the street from Harold's, because I was often thought that would go hand in hand with development. Community store, grocery store would help that whole area. You know, so now they fixed that up, and have new gas tanks.
They didn't have gas forever.
They don't have gas yet?
I don't know, they didn't have, I mean,
With Texaco side,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah.
inconvenient.
That's so convenient. Like the dollar store, it's no longer a dollar store, it's like a dollar quarter store.
Right.
$5.
Any other public discussion? Say, all right, I get a motion for adjournment.
All right.
That's fine.
You can second.
Second,
Thank you.
thank you all.
Nice seeing everyone. It's been a while.
Take another 6 months off?
Yes, over a year.
Press memory to remember what we've done.